On September 28th, 1973, Peter Reilly came home to find his mother dead on their bedroom floor. State police immediately set their sights on Peter as the main suspect, and after 8 straight hours of interrogation, Peter signed a statement that he was responsible for his mother's death. But rather than the relief the state troopers said he would feel in confessing to his crimes, Peter felt confusion and uncertainty. But it was out of Peter's hands, and he was now at the mercy of the court. And as Plato said, the worst form of injustice is pretended justice. I'm Marina. With me, I have my best friend Laura, and this is Grim.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
You know how when you're living your life, and then all of a sudden you're out there helping cops solve crimes?
ABC Tonight.
I have an IQ of 160. I spot things that detectives miss.
The series premiere of fall's most anticipated new drama, High Potential.
That big brain of hers is going to help us close a lot of cases.
Caitlin Olsen is the new face of investigation.
You're a single mom pretending to be a cop.
I am not pretending. I'm just out here super copping.
High Potential. Series premiere tonight, 10/9 Central on ABC. And stream on Hulu.
I liked your Plato quote.
You know, I like to really bring it back to 300.
Philosophy 101.
When is that? 300
Yeah.
BC?
I was going for class number. Oh, not for year. I don't fucking know. I do remember taking a reading. I had to read something that Plato wrote in philosophy in college.
I remember taking philosophy, and our teacher would give us the exam. She'd give us a study packet. She'd go, if you prep with this study packet, you will do very well on the exam. So I would prep, and the exam was literally the study packet. And people would be like, I didn't know any of those questions. I was like, did you study? Because
I think we probably had the same professor. I can't remember her name, but was she like a little woman?
Did she wear a lot of butterflies?
I don't remember.
I feel like she had butterflies.
Yeah, I don't know.
Anyways, okay. So we're talking about Peter Reilly. I was going to say part 2 of Peter Reilly, and I said part 2 of Peter Reilly. I think some gremlins were upset about the cliffhanger from part 1, and I'm so sorry about that. But this episode will give you the closure that you've been craving. And as a reminder for this case, I relied on the book A Death in Canaan, a classic case of good and evil in a small New England town by Joan Barthel. Before we jump into it, we've got some Patreon shout outs.
Woo, woo. Woo, woo. I'm ready.
Woo, woo. The whistles go woo, woo.
Only in the mountain.
First up, we have Rebel L. Woo,
Rebel,
we love you so much.
Thank you, Rebel.
Thank you. We have Lily C.
Lily,
we love you so much. Yay, Lily.
Woo, woo.
Thank you. Woo, woo. Amanda.
Woo,
Amanda, we love you
we
so
love
much.
You. Thank you,
you.
Amanda.
Woo, woo. We have Kirsten B.
Kirsten.
We love you. We love you so much. Oh, man, you guys must hate to listen to these, but they sure do tickle us. Thank you so much, Kirsten B.
Thank you.
Jazzy Marshmallow.
Jazzy.
Jazzy. I was trying to think of something smart and witty to say.
Me too.
And instead I came up with absolutely
We
nothing.
just stared at each other over our mics, and all I could think of was, you're so soft.
I was going to say something like, does that make a jazzy s'more? But like, nothing.
That's better than mine. We'll go with that one.
Nothing came out. So thank you so much, Jazzy Marshmallow. We've got Zara.
Zara. Woo,
with
we
2
love
A's.
you.
Zara. Thank you so much. We love you. Thank you. Alicia F.
Alicia. Thank you, Alicia. We love you.
We love you. Hannah K.
Hannah.
Woo-hoo. We love you,
Hannah.
Hannah.
We love you.
Thank you so much. Margaret H.
Margaret.
We love you
We
so
love you,
much.
Margaret. Thank you.
Christina M.
Christina,
Woo-hoo.
thank
Christina,
you.
thank
We
you
love
so
you.
much. We love you. Samantha C.
Samantha.
Woo-hoo.
We love you.
You're
Woo.
the best. Thank you so much. Megan P.
Megan.
Megan P. We love you.
We
Thank
love
you so much.
I wish you could see Marina's face because she is just so
Expressive.
excited. Yes, so excited when she says names.
Stephanie B. Stephanie, we love you
We
so
love
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we also both like sway back and
Yeah.
forth and get all animated. And Marta AB.
Marta,
we love you. Thank you
Marta.
so
Woo,
much.
woo.
Guys, you're the best. We love you.
So great.
So much. I love for our Gremlins is free, but it like really makes, Patreon makes it really, really fun
We
for us.
really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And hopefully you appreciate it too.
Yeah, we just love you guys. Okay, so let's get back into it.
Yes.
So when we left off, Peter had just spent about 24 hours with the police, got less than 5 hours of sleep, and confessed to his mother's murder over 8 straight hours of interrogation. Trooper Mulhern took Peter's written statement and then let him know that he was going to be charged with murder, and he was. Peter was booked, his bail was set at $100,000, and he was brought to the Litchfield jail, which, grim fact for you, the Litchfield jail currently houses my favorite restaurant in the state.
I bet nobody saw that coming as the rest of that sentence.
They didn't.
Definitely not.
I like to keep it interesting.
Yeah.
So if you go, this is free advertising for you guys for the place, but Marketplace Tavern in Litchfield, it's in the old Litchfield jail. And if you go into the bar area, like that's where we eat, and you eat literally next to the old jail cells.
Awesome.
They're like up the wall. It's so cool.
Yes.
So cool.
On my list.
Highly recommend it. It's in Litchfield if anybody missed that. Litchfield jail, Litchfield, Marketplace Tavern. So good. The first thing Peter did once he got to jail was sleep for a very long time. He like woke up for food and then rolled over and went right back to sleep.
God.
So Peter, while he was in the jail, he was talking to another inmate, and the guy was like, "Hey, what are you in here for?" Because he's like this young, skinny kid. He said he was being charged with murdering his mother, and the other inmate is like, "Are you fucking kidding me right now?" And he was like, "Did you talk to the cops? Like, did you confess?" And this is what Peter said to him. "I think I did. I really don't know what I said, but I know I gave them a statement, and I'm not even sure what happened. All I can remember is that I came home and mom was laying on the floor, and I called for an ambulance, and they came, and then I was brought to the police barracks and questioned." Oh. The inmate told Peter, "Yeah, don't talk to him again and get a lawyer." Oh. So Peter just scrolled through the phone book looking for a name that he recognized, and he recognized the name of an attorney, Catherine Rohraback, and he goes, "I want her."
Okay.
So she was a Yale Law School grad. She was well known for her legal prowess, having done defense work during the Black Panther trial and working for women's rights with Planned Parenthood.
Wow.
So,
Awesome.
Yeah. Pretty great.
Yep.
And I think someone made the joke, like, you're not going to be able to afford her.
Right. I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
She would prove to be a worthy opponent against John Bianchi, who was a local hometown boy who'd been the Litchfield County prosecutor for about a year when Barbara died.
Okay.
So Catherine took the case, and I think she was highly underpaid for her work on the case, but she took it. Oh. And her first act was to get Peter's bond lowered to $50,000. The judge agreed to that because of the incredibly strong community backing. Wow. The locals created the Peter Reilly Defense Committee to raise the funds needed to get him out of jail, but they just couldn't raise the funds quick enough.
Oh my God.
And poor Peter, like, I think it was Marion Maddow. She said, like, when she would go visit him, when she first sat down with him, it's like he was completely different. He was like really like withdrawn and was like distrustful. But then like once she sat down with him a little bit longer, he would like warm up and get back to like the Peter that he was. So they were like, we have to get him out of jail because it's going to
like
just
sucking the life
it's gonna
out of
like
him.
ruin him pretty much.
Oh my God.
Which that's sometimes what happens when you take innocent people and put them in jail. You just like teach them how to be a criminal now instead of like they didn't need to be rehabilitated, but you just left them to their own devices with criminals. So it's not good.
God.
It's not good. Catherine's next task was to get Peter's confession thrown out.
Yep.
She filed a motion to suppress the confession as being involuntary and coerced.
Oh, you fucking think?
Yeah. At the pretrial hearing in December, the interview tapes were played and the troopers testified. The judge hearing the pretrial decided in February that Peter's confession was admissible.
Fuck, I knew you were going to say that because there's a lot of pages left. So.
There are. There may have been, this is what the judge said, there may have been some repetitive, suggestive questioning or the planting of ideas by the state police. but he didn't think that the tactics rose to a level that infringed upon Peter's due process rights. He pointed out that Peter had been given a chance to sleep and had been given dinner. And he said that the tapes that he'd heard, the polygraph tapes and the later tapes, Peter came off as, quote, a very intelligent, articulate, calm, alert individual who displayed no emotional anxiety, distress, or despondency during his interrogation.
So if we've learned nothing from Grimm, just fucking cry your whole
I know.
interrogation, because God forbid you try to be calm and answer questions and you're labeled as cold and too calm.
Exactly.
Fuck that.
But then if you're hysterical, they're like,
Yeah.
she was a little bit too
Yeah,
hysterical.
like fuck off.
So I guess like, I don't know, maybe just like avoid the police.
Or talk to a lawyer. Have a lawyer.
Maybe get a lawyer.
Maybe have a lawyer.
I don't know, guys.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe you should get a lawyer?
Maybe
Get a lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm available to be on retainer if anybody just wants to give me money. I'm just kidding. So that was a blow to the defense.
Yeah.
But the good news is, around the same time, the author of the book that I read, Joan Barthel, she wrote an article about Peter's case and the pre-trial that was going on to suppress his confession. It was published in the News Times, which was a magazine. It was seen by a woman named Jacqueline Bernard, who called one of Peter's local friends. She said that she had read the story and she was going to secure a loan for the additional $48,000 needed to bail Peter out of jail.
Wait, I have a question. I thought on bond you only needed 10%. Did they not have bondsmen?
They might not have. Or it might, like, there's just different types of bonds.
Oh, because that's a lot more money than I thought it was going to need to be. I was like, that's really unfortunate they can't come up with $5,000, but it was a full $50,000.
It was the full $50,000.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know about the bail landscape back in 1973.
You didn't
but
research that?
I didn't.
Okay.
It seems like either way they needed to raise the full amount.
Yes.
So, yeah. I wonder, now I want to know when bail bondsmen were created. Just did a quick old Google search of bail, and it started in like 1898. So it existed, but they needed the whole amount.
Okay,
anyways.
I'll accept that as the answer.
Thank you. So they bailed him out. Jacqueline was true to her word. She got the money, and Peter was released pending trial. He moved in with the Maddows in the interim.
Good.
Now, there was a lot of publicity surrounding the case, and after a few articles were published that the judge felt threatened the outcome of Peter's trial, the judge issued an order that he would hold anyone in contempt who made a statement that was reasonably calculated to affect the outcome of the trial.
Which you can do that?
It's called a gag order.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess, but all right.
I think it's basically, first of all, this is like a very small area.
True.
And
True.
I think Peter was just giving, I think Peter gave a interview. I'm like, what is the word? He gave an interrogation. Peter gave an interview and he was like, I just hope they find the real killer. Like, you know, I'm happy to be out, but I hope they find the real person.
Yep.
Like, I think just statements that like they were afraid would contaminate the jury pool, which is probably really small.
No, that's fair. I was thinking more, it was like just generally the media writing about it. I didn't realize Peter was saying things. And
but it did make the media very nervous because if they said anything, like even if Peter had nothing to do with it,
right,
they were afraid that it would get Peter's bail revoked. Like that was pretty much the threat.
Okay. Got it.
John Bianchi, the prosecutor, moved for a mistrial and asked that the trial be continued for 2 months to allow the publicity to die down. But Catherine Rohrbach objected and jury selection went on.
Okay.
So there were 12 jurors and 2 alternates who were chosen, 9 men, 5 women. And Peter's trial began on March 1st, 1974, less than 6 months after Barbara's murder.
Whoa.
So friggin' quick.
Yeah.
Super quick. I've never seen the wheels of justice turn that fast in my career.
Jeez.
So the first witness was the nurse supervisor who answered the phone at Sharon Hospital.
Okay.
She said Peter called around 9:40 p.m. And then Trooper Calkins, who took the phone call at the barracks, he said that the nurse called the state police at 9:58 because they had a log. So people listening were like, oh, okay. So Peter was home at 9:40 and called the hospital, and she just, sat on that information for 18 minutes?
Right.
Like, think she's wrong.
You think, yeah.
Then they called Trooper McCafferty, who was the responding officer at the crime scene. Sergeant Chapman, he was the officer who took the photos at the crime scene and Barbara's autopsy. And then they called Dr. Ernest Azumi, who performed Barbara's autopsy. Now, they wanted to submit all of the autopsy photos for the jury to view. And Catherine Rohrbach tried to keep out the photos as inflammatory.
Yeah.
She was like, what do these show? I mean, like, they had photos of, like, her vagina, like,
come on.
like all of this stuff. And even the judge was like, you really need all of these. And the state and the witnesses were like, yes, they're all incredibly relevant. Like, I need every single one of them to testify about the information that's in them. So yeah, all the photos came in.
Oh my God. Oh, and it's like it's very hard, I would think, if you're on the jury, to separate, like, am I finding this person guilty versus just did a murder occur?
Right.
And those pictures make you feel like, yeah, oh my God, yeah, of course a murder.
Awful
and
happened.
you're going to get that, even if you're trying to think of it separately, you're going to get that twisted with, like, it feels like that's what you're trying to validate.
That's why they say, like, those pictures are considered inflammatory and they consider them prejudicial because they just prejudice them, the jury against him. But so the pictures came in. Of note, in the medical examiner's testimony, he stated that the attacker wouldn't necessarily have blood on him depending upon the position they were standing in when they attacked. He also testified that there was an absence of blood on the cuts of her abdomen, indicating that those cuts had to have been made post-mortem after she bled to death. And he also opined that her legs were broken after her death due to the absence of blood that was found near the bone fragments.
Oh.
So basically, the state's argument right now is that Peter got home earlier than he said he had, that he was the only one in the house, that he said that Barbara was still breathing and gasping for air when he was there, and then she had injuries that were inflicted post-mortem. So they're like, there's literally nobody else that could have done it except this kid. That was their argument.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Another trooper was called to testify about a knife found in Barbara and Peter's kitchen, although Peter said he killed her with a straight razor. So
also, sorry, I'm processing slowly what you said. Go back a couple sentences.
Are you confused?
I am actually very tired. But so you were saying that she had, I didn't think about the implications of there being post-mortem injuries, because that is a little confusing.
It is.
I still don't think it was Peter, but
no,
I am wondering, maybe she was making noise. Like, how confident are we that she was actually alive versus just like, I don't know. That's the only one that I can see why they were talking about that.
So I didn't include this full discussion in my notes, but I read the book,
in
obviously.
Your head.
Yeah. But there was discussion about the difference between like biological death and clinical death, and how like someone could be dead, but you have like 5 minutes to resuscitate them. And also you think of like the wounds that were inflicted. Like if she had her jugular cut, you would think she's losing blood so quickly that she could maybe. I'm not a doctor, but like you'd wonder if it's not technically post-mortem. Like she's still kind of alive, but like there's no blood to be directed there because it's all coming out of her neck.
Yeah. That's like in the Alison Boda case where it's just like this series of perfect coincidences and whatever.
Right.
Like that was also the thing I was thinking about, like there not being blood where they expect it and all that.
Right.
Like, okay, yes, that generally 99.9% of the time means it was post-mortem.
Right.
But in this particular case, did everything just come together to make it have those circumstances, but have it be while she was alive? So anyway, that was my slow processing to your sentence.
Thank you. And even though like the police officers, when they were investigating it, like the evidence wouldn't even match their theory of the case at that point, because they're saying that the femurs must have been broken post-mortem. But when they were interrogating him, they're like, are you sure you didn't like accidentally hit her with your car and then like panic and drag her inside? Like, so they're like, she just has these extensive injuries. And I think they're making the opinions that they are about her autopsy, basically, again, to prove that he did it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Like you can't say it's fully objective.
No. Okay.
Although I'm sure Dr. Azumi would disagree with me.
I know.
So then they also brought in Lieutenant Shea, Sergeant Kelly, Sergeant Sally, Trooper Mulhern. They all testified.
Yep.
Catherine Rohrbach took her time with these witnesses, drawing out the testimony to try to show the jury the atmosphere of the questioning that led to Peter's confession.
Oh, good.
I mean, like, you could feel it just from me going over
Yes.
this. Like, that interrogation is like 50% of the book that I read. Like, it's just pages and pages and pages of like just the most insane discussions ever.
I would have been like, oh, are you tired? Oh, I'm so sorry. We're going to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she was really trying to like get that in front of the jury. And then they called someone called John. His name was John McAloon.
I said to him, I said.
So what had happened was his name was John McAloon. He was a prisoner. He was currently at Bridgeport Correctional.
Okay.
But he had been an inmate at Litchfield Jail on September 30th, 1973, which is when Peter was there. He said that he spoke to Peter, and he said that Peter had told him, he thought that he said that he killed his grandmother.
Oh.
But he told him that Peter said he killed his mother, and that Peter told him he realized he killed her after he was questioned by the police. He said that night he didn't want to go out with friends, and they fought about the car, and he went crazy. Wait, he did it. Okay, sorry. He did it because he wanted to go out with friends.
Yep.
I was like, that didn't make sense.
Yep.
And then they fought about the car, and he just went crazy over it. He said that his mother had an operation and was supposed to have follow-up injections, but she didn't. And between that and the drinking, their relationship was just bad at that time. He said he got rid of the clothes he'd been wearing Friday night because they had blood on the front of them. And then John McAloon said that Peter was had been wearing a pair of tan hush puppies, which Peter didn't own. They were Converse. So after the state rested, Catherine Rohrbach moved for a dismissal. She argued that all the state had established was that Barbara was brutally murdered.
Exactly.
Yep. But they didn't prove that Peter did it. The state argued that Peter was in the house when his mother was gasping for air, so he was the only one that could have inflicted the wounds post-mortem. The motion to dismiss was denied, and the trial continued. I mean, those are rarely granted anyways, because a lot of the facts are up to the jury.
Yeah,
Like, the jury is the finder of fact. Yep. So unless there is absolutely no evidence, like no testimony that could be inferred to find him guilty.
Okay, that makes sense.
I'm making just really good sentences right now.
Well, I can't tell if it's legalese or if it's you're tired, so it all sounds good to me.
My brain. Okay. So Peter's lawyer sought to set up a different timeline and then also confirm that Peter just kept his clothing the whole time and it didn't have blood on it. The Reverend from the teen center said that he went for coffee after the meeting. That was around 9:40 or 9:45. John Sachaki, who got a ride home from the teen center with Peter, said he got to his house around 9:45. Jim Mulhern's wife, concerning the clothing, she said that she saw Peter the day after Barbara was found dead and that he was wearing the same clothes that he had on at the teen center.
Yep.
Jeff Maddow, Peter's friend, was questioned on cross about Peter and Barbara's relationship. He said they swore at each other sometimes, and Barbara was drunk about 40% of the time that Jeff visited their house. But I don't think they established that their relationship was tumultuous enough to lead to murder.
Yep.
The inmate from Litchfield who Peter spoke to initially, who said he should get a lawyer, so not John McAloon.
Yep.
He said that when he spoke to Peter, none of Peter's statements were coherent at that time. That he was talking in circles completely.
Yep.
For experts, Catherine had a toxicologist testify. They had examined the razor, which was the alleged murder weapon, and they found no blood on it.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised.
And actually, so the police thought, okay, there's no blood on the razor, so he must have washed it off or washed his clothes or washed something. And like her pants and underwear were like soaking wet. So they were like, did you wash her? They took the kitchen, bathroom, and bathtub traps and the contents of the pipes, and there was no blood found in any of them.
They're literally looking, they're like, you know how it's supposed to be beyond a reasonable doubt. They're like, forget that. We're going to find like the most unreasonable thing and we'll give you that as the explanation on why he's guilty.
Right.
Oh my God.
So like he couldn't have washed anything.
No.
Like they proved there was no blood in the drains.
Oh my God.
A sergeant testified that there was a partial palm print on the inside of the front screen door and a partial fingerprint on the rear screen door that were identifiable but unidentified. So they belonged to somebody else. And I don't know how it wasn't in my notes. The back door was open when the police got there. Oh. That back door that was always locked that they didn't use. Oh. There were a few other character witnesses. And then Peter took the stand in his own defense.
Okay, I want to hear that in a second. I'm upset that he's doing that. But so the fingerprints were not Peter's.
They were not, no.
Okay.
And when I say they were identified but unidentifiable, like it was a full print, like they could.
They just don't know whose it was.
Yes.
Got
the
it.
person was not in the system.
Okay.
Correct.
Oh my God. This is, okay. Go ahead.
So Peter was called to the stand. At first, he was called to the stand late in the day. So they got in very few questions. He just testified that him and his mother would use bad language when they fought.
Okay.
And then court was adjourned for a long weekend. And interestingly, the state at that time offered a plea bargain with Peter, promising a light sentence, 3 to 5 years, if he would plead guilty to manslaughter. Peter turned it down.
Good. Oh my God. Is he still operating? Oh no, he has his lawyer. Okay. That's right.
Yeah, no, he's not pro se.
Thank God.
Peter returned to the stand that Tuesday, and the courtroom was packed because they heard that he had been called earlier there at the end of last week.
I got you.
However weeks work. Days of the week. Days of the week.
Do you have kids?
I do. My child started kindergarten tomorrow, so we'll be singing that song all the time. Peter was asked about the razor, the gift from his mother. He said he kept it on the bookshelf, which is exactly where the police found it.
Yep.
If you recall, he was like, yeah, I must have slit her throat with the razor and I must have gotten rid of it. I must have thrown it in these places. Oh, no, that's
and
weird.
He didn't do that.
Yeah, no, that's weird. It's exactly where it should have been because he didn't use it. He was asked about his mother's drinking, the missing wallet that his mother bought that morning. But the most important questions, obviously, were about his confession. Peter said that he remembered being interviewed, but he didn't remember much of what was discussed during those interviews. Peter agreed that he signed the statements, but he said it wasn't the truth. He had nothing to do with his mother's death.
Oh my God.
And then, after some argument back and forth, the polygraph tapes were played. But the judge warned that the test results were too unreliable to give any consideration. Either way. Either way. So closing arguments occurred on April 11th, and then the matter was turned over to the jury. At the outset of voting, the jury was split, 5 guilty, 4 not guilty, 3 undecided. On Friday afternoon, April 12th, the judge called the jury out and gave them a modified Chip Smith instruction, which comes from a 1916 case in Connecticut. So a Chip Smith instruction is an instruction given by a judge to a jury when they've been unable to reach a unanimous verdict.
Okay.
Catherine Rohrbach was displeased in this case because she said she'd never heard the instruction given when the jury wasn't deadlocked. Like they had only been deliberating for like 15 hours.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So the judge said in part, quote, although the verdict to which each juror agrees must, of course, be his own conclusion and not a mere acquiescence in the conclusions of his fellows, and although each juror has the right and duty to retain his own opinion, yet in order to bring 12 minds to a unanimous result, each juror should examine with candor the questions submitted to them with due regard and deference to the opinions of each other. Mm-hmm. 26 minutes later, the jury had a verdict.
Okay, so that additional instruction is basically saying like you got to just like keep your opinion, but like you got to come to a decision. So like don't just hold your opinion too tight if you're like keeping things like right. Is that the general gist of it? So
some people call it judicial arm twisting. I think that was the phrase in the book. It's sort of a necessary evil, but typically after like sometimes juries will go in and say it's like a 6-6 split. Mm-hmm. Like I've heard juries come out and they're like, we're split. And it's like, no, it's been 2 hours. Like you need to talk it through more. Yeah. Usually it's like when you just have firmly established that no one's changing their mind, like they'll come out and say we're deadlocked.
Yep.
Court doesn't want to declare a mistrial. So they'll request a Chip Smith instruction. And the overall gist of the instruction is like, you're entitled to your own opinion and it should be your opinion, but you also need to be like open and listen to the opinions and reasoning of the other people.
Yep. Okay.
Basically. So don't change your mind just because it's somebody else's, but like keep an open mind.
Yep. Listen to the facts and the way they're sharing them and the opinions they have. Got it.
Yep.
It's actually how I wish people would handle politics. Because you don't have to change your opinion and you're absolutely entitled to your opinion, but you sure should be listening to the facts and other people's opinions as such anyway.
Correct.
But man, I continue to be stressed out about the fact that many people's lives are in the hands of 12 strangers. Mm-hmm. It's insane. It's insane because it's hard to understand all this stuff. It's complicated. And people, oh my God, it's okay. All right. You're never going to finish this case. Sorry.
I'm also pretty sure that if I was in this type of situation, I would not ask for a jury. I think that I would take a bench trial.
Yeah.
Because I have seen people convict on far less than beyond a reasonable doubt.
And especially just how it's set up with it being such a brutal murder. There's really nobody else it's very hard to fabricate. You're basically saying like, no, he isn't guilty. Like you haven't met your burden of proof. But it's a lot more compelling when you can say, and because it's this person.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, I know. Yeah. Because there's no other suspect. There's like... It's tough.
Man.
Okay. So 26 minutes later, the jury had a verdict. This is Friday, April 12th. Foreman read the verdict, guilty of manslaughter in the first degree.
I knew it. Yeah, I knew it.
Attorney Rohrbach requested that the jury be polled, and they all confirmed their guilty vote. So do you know what jury polling is? So the foreman is the only one that comes out and says we've all voted guilty.
Yep.
But the defense attorney can ask for the jury to be polled, at which point each juror will individually be asked on the record to confirm what their vote is. Because if you had somebody, I don't think it happens often, but it's very important for purposes of appeal. But you could have someone that's like, I wanted not guilty, and then you find out that it wasn't actually unanimous, that it was just like they like twisted their arm into saying that it was guilty.
Yep.
I don't think that happens very often.
Because you'd have to have somebody like actually say that out loud.
Yeah, they would have to get up and be like, yeah, I voted not guilty instead of guilty. But either way, so that's jury polling. The trial had lasted 7 weeks and now sentencing was scheduled for May. In the meantime, Peter remained out on bail. He got engaged to his girlfriend, and he was planning to get married in July or August 1975. He said he was hoping to be working at Southern New England Telephone Company. He was making plans, which...
Well, buddy.
Yeah, those would be difficult to accomplish once he was sentenced to 6 to 16 years in prison by the judge in May. Catherine Rohrbach had requested at sentencing for a suspended sentence, which she said would be obviously very unusual. But given the outpouring of community support and the fact that prison would ruin Peter,
without a doubt,
she was like, he does not need to be in prison.
So was it a charge of manslaughter because he like didn't remember and all that? That's why they didn't go for, or because murder and manslaughter aren't the same, right?
No, I think it was. I think that was a lesser included. So murder has like the intent.
Oh, we talked about this.
Manslaughter.
Right.
I think the first degree manslaughter was probably like in the heat of the moment. Like it included like the heat of the moment piece of it. So it wasn't like premeditated.
Yeah.
They didn't find that it was premeditated. And I think even the prosecutor was like, oh, I knew from day one this was manslaughter.
Okay.
Yeah. Calm down, John Bianchi. Yeah. Get out of here. So, yeah, the judge did not give him a suspended sentence. He said it was a horrific homicide regardless. Bail was raised to $60,000 and court was adjourned. Peter was brought to jail, but the community raised the increased $10,000 in the blink of an eye, and they had him bailed out by that afternoon.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they said that once court adjourned, like everyone was outside, like running around with like chickens with their heads cut off, like to raise the money needed.
Oh my God.
And they at one point were like, "Oh my God, we're not going to make the money." And then like somebody pulled up and they were like, "I've got the rest of it." And they were like, "Can we just have him now?" And they were like, "No, he's already on his way. Like you have to go get him at the prison."
Oh my God. And it's also like this is in the 70s, so like you're not doing like electronic transfers.
No.
Like people were probably literally running to the
around.
bank, like going,
running around. And like, again, there's a small community. Like they were behind this kid.
Oh.
So now they just had to fight the conviction. Mm-hmm. By the end of summer, Peter had a new lawyer, T.F. Gilroy Daly, and he was going to appeal the verdict and also work on a motion for a new trial. I think this came about, he was recommended. I think like Catherine just couldn't carry on and she had been paid like $3,500, I think, which is like not sufficient.
And this is like requiring quite a bit of attention.
Yeah, a little bit.
You're not doing this in passing.
Right.
On the side of your desk.
Not only that, it really had like national attention. Like people were paying attention and people were, I think people who took notice of it nationwide, like were sending in money to help fund his appeal because they felt it was an injustice.
Wow.
So in order for the motion for a new trial to be successful, they had to find newly discovered evidence. And is evidence that have to be judged admissible at a new trial and would be likely to produce a different result.
Yep.
But it also has to be evidence that like you could not have discovered with due diligence the first time around.
Sure.
So it can't
if you just fucked up, like you can't be like, oh, but wait.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, but wait, there's more. Yep. So the motions are rarely granted.
Yep.
And this guy goes, the new attorney goes by Roy Daly, not T.F. Gilroy Daly.
Okay.
It's Roy Daly. In addition to Roy Daly, Jim Conway joined Peter's team. He was an investigator who had been a police officer in New York City and then a bail bondsman for 10 years. That should have alerted me to the fact that they existed.
Oh, yeah, but he maybe could have answered our question.
And he said, a case isn't won in court. You need an investigator. So the team worked tirelessly and put together the information they needed, and Roy Daly filed for a new trial. The hearing on that motion began almost 2 years after the first trial, and it was like deja vu in the Litchfield courthouse. Like,
so wait, was he in jail at that point?
Nope, he was on
Okay.
bond still.
Okay.
Which that's super rare nowadays. Like you can get an appellate bond, but after you've been convicted of a crime and sentenced, you lose the presumption of innocence. So it's much harder to be able to be released on bond.
Okay,
I think there may have been different like regulations back then, and also like because he had such insane community support.
Right.
I don't know. It was the 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know. But that is very rare. But thankfully he wasn't in jail
good.
during this
Just
whole thing.
Painting the whole picture. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. So this motion hearing. First, Roy Daly attacked the timeline that had been established by the state in the initial trial.
Yep.
So the state had worked on the theory that Peter was home between 9:30 and 9:40 because Peter called that nurse, she said, around 9:40, but the state police got the call at 9:58. Again, 18 minutes.
Yeah.
Would you just sit on that information for 18
Doesn't
minutes?
seem urgent.
No. And now at the initial trial and at this hearing, Marion Maddow, who's Jeff's mom, she testified that Peter called her during the movie Kelly's Heroes. She remembered the scene that like was playing in the background and that she was watching it on television. So Roy Daly and Jim Conway, they brought in this guy. They took his testimony, Michael Martin. He was the director of primetime feature films for CBS television. And he said he testified that the scene Marion Maddow described at the trial and that hearing was transmitted over the air at 9:50 and 10 seconds.
Fuck yes.
And he said that it could have been shown at a different time by a local television station, but it couldn't have been any earlier than 9:50 and 10 seconds.
My God. Mm-hmm. I love that more than DNA analysis.
That is hashtag deep.
Yes.
That, you know what though? What's really funny is I'm like thinking of cases where someone would be like, what if we got the guy from the TV station? And I'd be like, are you fucking crazy? Like, seriously? But like they needed it.
Yes.
And therefore, obviously, Peter couldn't have telephoned the Sharon Hospital any earlier than that either.
Yep.
So remember the identifiable but unidentified fingerprint and palm print. So Roy Daly brought out through Sergeant Gerald F. Pennington of the state police that fingerprint had now been identified as of January 1976 as that of Timothy A. Parmalee. This guy was picked up for stealing a car in 1974, which was after his trial. And come to find out, initially, I think the police did look into other people that were in the town, and they did initially interview Sandra Ashner, and this was Michael Parmalee's girlfriend, and she also lived with Tim Parmalee. And when they first spoke to her, she was like, oh yeah, Michael was home all night with me. Like they were home all night. And then when they talked to her again, she was like, yeah, no, he actually did leave that night. She said that he left that night and he didn't return until around 8:30 in the morning. And then she said that he was acting strangely for the next few weeks. He would wake up at like 1, 2, 3 in the morning.
Oh my God.
Upset and shaking.
Come on. Mm-hmm. And I know that doesn't make his guilt, but oh, by the way, that sounds like doubt to me.
Like that's not helpful.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. And they were like, but you lied. Like when you were originally asked, you said he stayed home all night. And she was like, I didn't want to get involved. And then concerning Tim Parmalee, so I mentioned that Barbara had cashed a check that morning. So it was $100 check, but they only found 16 cents in the house after the homicide. They said that Tim Parmalee had been seen around town carrying a large amount of cash the week after Barbara's death.
Oh, Interesting.
Convenient.
Yep.
Convenient.
Oh my God.
And then concerning Michael Parmalee's relationship with Barbara and Peter, one of the local kids, Paul Bellini, testified, I observed Barbara Gibbons bad-mouthing Michael Parmalee about what he said about Peter and I, calling him names and so forth. Hey, queer, how is things in Ferryville, and so forth. So Michael was in the Army, and he wanted to get out of the Army. And one of the ways to get out of the Army was saying that he was a homosexual. So he asked Peter and this other kid to lie and say that they had been like in a homosexual relationship with him. So Barbara clung to that and was like, fuck you, basically.
Jeez.
So they did not have a good relationship.
No.
So the Army investigator ended up coming to Barbara's house to talk to Barbara and Peter and Paul.
What about Mary?
Peter, Paul, and Mary. And after that interview, Barbara didn't let Tim or Michael in her house ever again, and she would taunt Michael every time she saw him.
In her fur coat.
Yes,
from the front porch.
From the front porch. Yes, correct. And Peter said that he saw Tim looking in the window of his house about 3 to 4 weeks before the murder. So basically, Tim and Michael could have been viable suspects.
And again, they're not proven guilty, but it's
correct.
Like, okay.
But you're questioning it now. Roy Daly also hired Dr. Herbert Spiegel. He was a psychiatrist with a private practice and a professor at Columbia University. The doctor tested Peter using a method called the hypnotic induction profile, which he himself had developed over the past 8 years. The test had just been recognized in the scientific literature in early 1975 and had not been available at the time of his trial, his first trial. So Dr. Spiegel concluded in part that Peter was a somewhat immature young man who has a serious deficit in his ability to identify who he is as a person. He has difficulty in integrating his concept of self and a poor ability to integrate his conceptions. Conception.
What about his affect?
Please don't, Affleck. His conceptions of others. Because he had such a low self-esteem, under conditions of interrogation, he needed support, protection, and understanding of a question and formulating an answer. Without that support and guidance, he can be easily confused, and he most certainly can easily accept as a fact something he knows nothing about.
Oh, there you go.
This is especially true because of his long-standing respect for authority, especially police authority. Yep. The doctor testified that Peter wouldn't be emotional because his personality type perceives emotions in an alienated way. Oh. And he said that when he interviewed Peter, Peter said he wanted to be a policeman when he grew up.
Oh my God.
Like this kid.
I'm so sad.
This little bubba.
It's like the more innocent he is, the more guilty he looks. Well, to the police.
I know.
Yeah.
And then they also called Milton Halpern. He was a nationally known expert in the field of forensic medicine. He testified in support of Peter. He was called primarily to refute the testimony of Dr. Izumi. In response to certain hypothetical questions posed, Halpern testified that it would have been physically impossible for Peter to have committed the crime either under the original time sequence or the time sequence established by the newly discovered evidence without being contaminated by his mother's blood.
Fair. And that's even more powerful, that even the fake timeline, the wrong timeline, he still didn't have enough time.
Right. And then he confirmed again that like the strip search showed that he had no blood on him, no marks, nothing on the clothing, and that there was no evidence of blood in any of the drains in the house.
That's
or
insane.
the septic system. Like
That's
they tested
insane.
all of it. Yes. So the motion hearing lasted 5 weeks with more than 36 witnesses, which that's a lot for a motion hearing. It's like a full-blown trial.
Yeah.
Basically, they just needed to give the judge something to think about. They're like, here's everything we have.
My God,
like, please cling to anything.
Yeah.
On March 25th, 1976, Judge Speziali, who was the same judge who heard the original trial, rendered his decision in a 34-page memorandum.
Thank you for that.
Threw the pages in just for you.
I appreciate that.
The judge felt that the new evidence presented was enough to consider that the result of a new trial would be different.
Good. And, you know, it's frustrating that they went through all of that and they still have to, like, the greatest outcome of that is to now have to go through a whole trial.
I know.
It's awful.
Yep.
I'd be like, again?
Yep.
I can't do that.
Let's do it again.
Wow.
The judge said that certain evidence could not have been found with due diligence as it didn't exist at the time, like the owner of the fingerprint on the back door. Other evidence went beyond the scope of due diligence, like calling in the film guy from CBS to testify about the timing of that scene. The judge did criticize attorney Rohrbach for failing to call a witness in the first trial to explain the psychology behind Peter's confession. And I
guess
think
that's kind of important.
that is an important one, but honestly, like the totality of the circumstances, like there was just other stuff that came up. So the prosecutor, John Bianchi, said that he would proceed with a new trial, but there was doubt as to who would prosecute it. And then John has since passed away. To this day, Peter has not been retried and Barbara's murder remains unsolved.
What?
They
So
never
just-
retried him. So he is...
But they could, hypothetically.
Although all
God.
discussions of him are basically that he was exonerated by this like new trial evidence, and
because they
that-
basically had a trial in the motion.
Right. They had the initial trial and then they had the new trial.
So he is, well, I'll just let you read.
He's free.
I'll read your notes.
So since he was released and his conviction overturned, police have widely refused to admit that they did anything wrong, and some still feel that they had it right the first time. And people are thinking that like police have never touched this case again, like not thinking that it's even a cold case. In 2004, a journalist and author, Donald Connery, filed a request to review the files of the case, and he was denied access. The state police said that the files were inaccessible because the investigation was still open and pending. And then he got another response that the files no longer exist. A hearing was held appealing that denial, and the agency stated, the files had been erased.
What?
Unwilling to accept this explanation, they filed motions with the Freedom of Information Commission, and they were eventually given access to the files.
Oh my God, they lied?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I thought it was bad enough that they actually lost them, but they lied. Oh my God.
So this was in 2005 that was going on. But there's really not much. I was trying to find like recent things of Peter. It just said that like Peter has gone on to try to influence and reduce police interrogation tactics, like,
course.
that type of behavior. But and thankfully, Peter really didn't spend much time in jail.
I know, because his life has changed forever,
Right,
obviously, for many reasons, but it would have been been so much worse.
Well, yeah, because if he served 4 years in jail, like during this whole process, he would be a different person than he is today. Because it would impact him. So anyways, I highly recommend the book. I mean, it is, obviously it's a true crime book, but just like reading the interrogation, I was honestly like slack-jawed. Like I texted my friend Aunt and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like unacceptable. Yeah. Like I knew of the story, but until you like really read the interrogation transcripts, it's unfathomable.
Well, and I purposely don't do, because I actually looked briefly, because in our backlog list of cases, I look at all of them to see like, what's the one I want to do next. And I had started very briefly reading this one and I was like, ooh, that's good. And I texted Marina and she was like, nope, mine.
It's mine. It's mine.
And so I didn't read any further. So I actually didn't know. That's why I said in the beginning, I wasn't sure like what direction it was going to go, because I actually didn't
that's
know.
Sweet or not. I don't know.
Because I never know, because they all sound sweet in the beginning, but he really is.
Yeah, no, he is.
Oh my God.
Yeah, he is.
I am just incredibly blown away by this case.
I know. It's crazy.
It was like you were reading me a story, actually.
I know.
Because I didn't know the ending, so it's great.
And for my next P-Boney, I'm just going to read you the full book. And instead of reading you the names, I'm going to act it out. I'm going to be like, but what? And I don't know. And then just change my voice.
We did talk at the beginning when Marina was like, there's some transcript to read. I was just going to read the names. And both of us were silent. We were like, or do different voices.
Kelly, you know what you did, Peter. But no, I know.
I don't know why Peter has to have a high voice, but
I don't know.
He's younger.
Well, he's younger and he's not like a polygraph sergeant. I don't know. Anyways, if you're enjoying listening to Grimm, please rate and follow us wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you don't miss any episodes. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, make our day by leaving us a written review. Although there's comments on Spotify now, and those are so cool. Super fun.
Yeah.
You can find our page on Facebook by searching Grimm: A True Crime Podcast. If you want to subscribe to our Patreon, you can go to Patreon and search Grimm: A True Crime Podcast. If subscriptions aren't your thing, which is totally cool, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Grimm Crime Podcast. If you donate $5 or more, we'll send the first 200 donors a 4-inch Grimm die cut sticker, which is pretty awesome. And we have it on like every drink bottle that we all own. Follow us on Instagram at Grimm Crime Podcast for information on future episodes and case photos. If you want to send us a case suggestion or just say hi, you can email us at grimmcrimepodcast@gmail.com. Listen, learn, and stay alive until next time, because the future is grim.